Hi, and welcome to this month's Plated Up Kentucky Proud recipe segment. My name is Kelly Burgess, and I'm the Family Consumer Sciences Extension Agent in Allen County with the University of Kentucky Cooperative Extension Service. I am really excited about today's recipe because I have to admit this is one that I was a little bit skeptical of at first. So this recipe is called Kentucky Red Velvet Muffins. Sounds delicious, right? Well, it really is delicious, but there's a secret ingredient that we'll see if you can guess. I'll start by going over some of our ingredients. We have whole wheat flour, we have cocoa powder, baking powder, and salt, and then we'll cream together butter and sugar along with some grated orange peel or zest. We have orange juice, vanilla extract, applesauce, eggs, chocolate chips, and, drum roll please, beets is our secret ingredient. So beets is gonna be what provides this recipe that brilliant red color that we think of when we think of red velvet. So I have to admit, I am one of those people that really does not love beets. Beets are not my favorite food. And so I wanted to try this recipe out of curiosity because I was told that you can't taste the beets. And I have to say, it is true. I did not really taste the beets when I made this recipe. So let's go ahead and get started. We are gonna start by mixing our dry ingredients together. And once again, as usual today, I'm making half of the recipe, but I will tell you the amounts that you need to make the full recipe. So this is 1 1/4 cups of whole wheat flour. We have 1/3 cup of cocoa powder. We have 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking powder, and we have 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Okay, so we are gonna just mix these together in our dry ingredients bowl. Sometimes you'll see me do this with a whisk. Today I'm just using a spoon just to keep it simple. So we wanna get all of that mixed together. And that whole wheat flour is a really great asset to this recipe. It increases the amount of fiber that we're getting when we eat this recipe along with the beets. So beets are also a good source of fiber. So now that we have our dry ingredients mixed together, we're gonna go ahead and move on to some of our fresh ingredients. So we will be mixing 4 tablespoons or 1/4 cup, that would be 1/2 stick of butter. I have already chopped it up into little small cubes and let it soften at room temperature for about an hour. That's helpful in the mixing process. We have 1/2 cup of sugar. And then we have the zest of 1 orange. So I went ahead and zested this. You can use, some cheese graters have a zester, or you might have a standalone zester that works as well. We're gonna go ahead and mix that in too. So the recipe says to cream this together. Since I'm only making half of the recipe, I'm gonna do this manually with a fork because sometimes creaming can get a little bit messy if you don't have a large volume of ingredients. So since I just have a little bit, I'm choosing to do this with a fork. You can do it with a fork even if you are making the whole recipe, just to kind of make it a little bit easier on yourself. It serves the same purpose. So our goal here is to combine our butter and sugar. And this is a good chance. This smells really, really good with the orange zest too. This recipe makes 12 muffins. So really our butter and sugar amounts that we're using is not a lot. It's really not a lot compared to a lot of traditional muffin recipes. Okay, so we have that combined very, very nicely. And so now it is time to add in some of our wet ingredients. So let me check my recipe just to make sure. We're now gonna add our orange juice, which this is the juice from 1 orange. So about 4 tablespoons, about 1/4 cup. We're gonna add in our orange juice. We are going to add in, the full recipe is 2 eggs. We have applesauce. This is 1/2 cup of applesauce. This serves as a replacement for a fat. So instead of oil, we're using applesauce, and that helps to improve the sweetness level as well. And then we have vanilla extract, which this is 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay, so now we do need to get out our beaters, and this won't be quite as messy now that we have some more ingredients in here. So we are gonna go ahead and just mix this on low for just a few seconds. That's good. We don't have to over mix it. We just want it to be combined. And then our next step is going to be to add in our dry ingredients. So the recipe recommends doing this in 1/3 increments. So about 1/3 of our dry ingredients at a time, just so that it doesn't splatter out everywhere as it has been known to do. So we'll go ahead and give this a mix. Okay, we'll add in another 1/3. And then we'll just save a little bit to add at the end. Okay, this will be our last mixing. Our last bit of dry ingredients over here. And I'm going to go ahead and use my spatula to make sure that all of this is down in the bowl so that we get it all mixed in. Okay, last round of mixing. Okay, so while I clean off our beaters, make sure you have washed your hands before you do this. Of course, if you're doing it at home, I washed my hands before we came on camera today. We're just going to clean these off so that we don't waste any of our delicious batter. And so you might be wondering a little bit more about the beets. So I will tell you what I did ahead of time to prepare our beets today. You do have to cook the beets before you make the recipe. So this can be a step that you do ahead of time, maybe the night before, maybe earlier in the day. And you have two options for how to cook your beets. You can either bake them in the oven or you can steam them on the stovetop. Either is a great option for how to prepare those beets. I chose to bake mine in the oven, and what I did is I took a casserole dish, glass baking dish with a lid. I put about 1/4 inch of water in the bottom just to provide a little moisture, put my beets in the pan, and baked it for about 40 minutes on 375 degrees. So after I did that, this is the end result of what those beets look like. You'll notice that they still have a little bit of the stem and they still have the tail. So the reason why we leave this on is because it helps hold the moisture in the beet as it cooks. So if you go ahead and chop these off, that moisture is going to escape and it's going to be a little bit dried up. We don't want that. We want nice, juicy, tender, moist beets. So that's the reason why those are left on there. The recipe does recommend removing the skin after they're cooked. That process is a lot easier after it's cooked too. So you can chop off the top and the bottom, and you can peel that with a paring knife or a peeler, either way. But honestly, that skin becomes so tender after it's been cooked that it's not a big deal if you miss a little bit of the skin. So that's kind of my tips for you as far as cooking your beets ahead of time. It is something that you want to make sure that they're tender. So if you have beets that are different sizes, those smaller beets are probably going to be cooked a little bit quicker than your larger beets. So just keep that in mind. You might need to remove a few of them. Okay, let's go ahead and mix this up while I keep talking. We have a 1/2 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. You can use the mini chocolate chips or the full size, whichever you prefer. And we have 1 cup of cooked beets, and these have been finely chopped. So after we have them cooked and they look like this, we're gonna get them out on our cutting board and just chop them up very finely, like how you would chop up an onion. And we're gonna add these in as well. And once we add those in, we're gonna fold. So folding is just a technique where we, it's not necessarily stirring, but the goal is to just incorporate those bigger pieces of ingredients that we've just added. And when I practiced this recipe, one thing that I decided to do that I will let you know of, that you recommend, is I reserved, this is some of the juice that was left in the pan after I cooked the beets. So if you are wanting a brighter red colored muffin to go with the red velvet, you can add a little bit of this back into your mixture. So I'm going to pour just a little bit. If you've cooked beets before, you know that color is pretty strong. So I'm going to add just a little bit of that liquid in there so that we bring out that reddish color a little bit more in our final product. If you really wanted to add some food coloring, you could, but I think that's the beautiful thing about this recipe is that we can do it in a natural way and get some of those extra vitamins and minerals from our juice. So we have it all ready, and now we are going to put it in our muffin cups. So move my mixer, and you will notice that I have these lined. However, these liners are a little bit different than your traditional liners. These are actually silicone reusable liners. If you're looking for a great gift idea for somebody, for your kitchen enthusiast, these are awesome. Nothing sticks to them. You don't have to grease them or anything. So we're just going to distribute our mix. And while I do this, we'll just talk a little bit more about beets. They are available in Kentucky June through November. They're more of a cool season crop. Obviously, it is December, and I was able to get these beets fresh from Need More Acres Farm right here in Scottsville. They do some high tunnel growing and extended season growing, so they're able to provide things a little bit outside of the traditional growing season. But normally, you might have local farmers in your area who do the same thing. You can probably still find beets throughout the winter months, so that's a really good reason to use this recipe this time of year. Another reason why I recommend this recipe for right now is as we come off of the holidays, you might have stoked your sweet tooth a little bit, but this is a good recipe that still kind of satisfies your sweet tooth, but in a little bit of a healthier way. So if you have some New Year's resolutions, if you're looking at, incorporating more vegetables in your diet or getting back in shape, this can be a really fun way to do that and even a kid-friendly way. So like I said, I am not a big fan of beets, but I really enjoyed this recipe. So all we have left to do is just to bake this in our oven at 350 degrees for about 25 minutes. I had to let mine go just a few extra minutes. You want to check it with a toothpick, make sure that that comes out clean. So once again, I hope that you enjoyed this recipe and that you have the curiosity and courage to try it at home. So if you would like the recipe, you can get it a variety of ways. You can email barry.hyatt@nctc.com. You can also search Plated Up Kentucky Proud in your internet search bar, or search Plated Up Kentucky Proud on Facebook for this recipe and many others. So we hope that you enjoy this recipe and have a happy new year. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next month.